home.
Thank you.
Glad to hear you made it home safely.
Thank you, Kathleen. Yeah, Catherine and I were like going back and forth to see if I had to do a recording or do a live presentation, but finally we boarded the flight and landed at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh boy,
Wow.
you're gonna crash too when this is over.
Probably. My body clock is still 10 and a half hours ahead of my mind clock.
There you go.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mitali.
Okay, do we have everybody? So I
I
can
think
get
there's some
started.
more people that need to be assigned, but you don't have to wait. They'll be assigned shortly.
All right, so I guess I can get started. So we talk about the PC phase. What is the PC phase? It's the post-COVID phase that we are going through right now, and how the workplace has modified for us. Some of you might have seen these view graphs before, but I'll still go through again. So the topics I'll cover today is what today's workplace looks like, what are the cybersecurity risks and challenges, some basics on cloud solutions, some good practices, and finding your right IT partner. So what does today's workplace look like? The first one is the organizations are choosing resources to work telework. So telecommuting is one of the topics that we talk pretty often. Telework is giving the ability for the organization to perform work at whatever location that they want to. That is something we called as a distributed workplace. So people can work from home, people can work from work location, and yet collaborate on their work. Then another thing that organizations are encouraging employees or non-employees is bringing their own devices, which we call it BYOD. You bring in your device, you connect to the network, and then that creates a lot more challenges on the security aspect of it. A lot of consideration is being given moving to cloud. So moving your business to cloud is another factor that is getting driven. So cloud solution is something that is getting considered as part of business decision. And while we are at all these different aspects of work, we tend to create cybersecurity risk as a prime topic to discuss. How are we doing with the security of our data? Our data today is our biggest asset, and security of our data is a prime topic of discussion. So security policies are a big topic of discussion. Lastly, cybersecurity is being driven by a NIST organization with certain frameworks that we work on. There is no certain rules. It's just a bunch of regulations that we follow, or rules that we follow to comply to the regulation. Now, what are the risks and challenges? So this is what a landscape looks like today when it comes to our workplace. We have a cybersecurity team, we have a firewall, we have the entire internet, we have a whole bunch of third-party vendors, we have SOCs, which is called a Security Operations Center, and then we also have something called an insider threat, where which are the users within the organization, where they get phishing requests and then they tend to compromise their credentials. Now, we as a security information officer try to regulate, control all these, or manage all these problems together to make sure that your network is secured. How does a cybersecurity project looks like? We have a CEO of an organization who works with IT folks like us to manage your cybersecurity problem, which is the big engine in the back, with a budget, which is little toy engine in the front. So our budget is always normally lesser than the problem that we have at hand to solve. So we are constantly trying to evolve our network, our environment to suit the needs of the current threats that we have today at hand. There we go. We have the mapping. Now, what are the basics of cloud solution? Microsoft has been pushing cloud solutions ever since 2020, when the whole unraveling of pandemic started. So moving to cloud is no longer an option. It is something that Microsoft has been pushing you there. If you'll notice that Microsoft Teams originally had roughly 44 million users. Now, today, we have close to 115 million users, active users within the Microsoft Teams environment. So that is how much adoption we've had in the past 1 year. Now we have Google Workspace, and we also have Microsoft Office 365 in the cloud solution workspace. Now, cloud data protection is a shared responsibility though. Microsoft and Google both in their licensing agreement, they do not say that they are going to cover your data. Your data is your responsibility to protect. So you have to make sure that your data is backed up adequately by a third-party software, which is either backing up to the cloud or backing up to a local location, whatever it is. But backing up your data is your responsibility. So they distinctly segregate what they're going to back up for and what you're supposed to back up for. So not just security, but also backup are two critical components in today's workspace, which you need to cater to. Now, what are the best practices for IT security? Two-factor authentication. Make sure that you have enabled your multi-factor or two-factor authentication for every account you have, which are critical to your business. Do not use same passwords. Do not share passwords across accounts like Google, Microsoft, Dropbox, and your banking system. They all should be separate. They all have to follow the regulations that are rules that each website actually dictate. But you have to make sure you don't share amongst any of these websites. Don't share passwords amongst users. That's another thing that a lot of folks tend to do, but don't share any passwords across users. Don't save your passwords in browser. That's a big mistake a lot of folks does. Do not save your passwords in the browser. Change your passwords frequently. A lot of folks, a lot of websites, they actually push for changing passwords every 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. Try not to reuse the password that you had at least for last 3 or 4 passwords. It's a good habit to keep changing it. So the way a password can be hacked is a lot difficult for the hackers. And then look very closely to the guidelines that are given by some of these websites for coining your passwords. So a lot of folks tend to do ABC equals 123. That is not a good password. Try putting in a little more than just that. No, Kathleen, believe me, I have seen ABC 123 across a lot of clients, and I have tried pushing to change them. It doesn't work, but still, my job is to say, please do. Now, critical areas that you need to consider. Constant monitoring of your machines where all your patch updates are done for your Microsoft operating system. If you use Apple operating system, if you use Android Android operating systems to make sure all the patches are kept up to date. Security patches are a big thing. So make sure that you have those patches kept up to date. All the antiviruses are up to date. All the signatures for those antiviruses are kept up to date. Then another thing is making sure you have a good business disaster recovery plan. So if your data is kept somewhere, have a secondary backup where the backup, you can restore it from the backup. Something to do with network management, like firewalls, access points. Access points meaning your Wi-Fi's. You need to make sure that those are secured, not hackable. And then something for email. A lot of folks in business use Gmail, which is a public domain. I recommend to refrain from them. Have your own domain, which is a private domain, and it can be kept secured. We cannot secure a public domain because it's open, and we cannot run any kind of security on those. A private domain, we can definitely do that. We do create something called an auto threat protection, which takes away a lot of these spam, phishing emails, clear it out before it reaches your mailbox. So consider putting your business consider using a private domain email address than a public domain like Gmail or Yahoo. It's very easily hackable. Lastly, I would say that security is always too much until the day it's not enough. This is not something I have said. It's given by the former FBI director, William Webster. Any questions so far?
I mean, a lot of this is revolved around like, public, your companies and stuff like that, like privately too. Like I always worry about, people hacking into my private email to get my contacts or any other notes or anything like that that I get. Any way to protect that?
When you say private email, what kind of private email are we talking about?
Like I think of my Comcast.net account, right? Things that I have. I mean, I have everything on my Apple phone, I have it on my Mac, but I think to myself, how private really is all of that?
Now, if Comcast, Optimum, they tend to be a little more secure than Gmail or Yahoo. Yahoo is a public domain. You cannot, if as soon as it becomes a public domain, we cannot run any security on them because we don't have any control on how the mail gets routed over there. Now, if you're running your business, you can have like KathleenDwyer.com. Now that's a private domain. Now we can use certain tools to filter emails that are coming into abc.com, which is a private domain, and we can filter out phishing emails, any ransomware emails that are coming in, any files which has viruses. It also scans for those. Any emails, even it also looks for like some domains have travelxyz.com. The word travel itself makes it a phishing lookalike kind of domain, and it filters out unless you block, you say whitelist it within those tools saying that yes, I would like to receive emails from this particular domain. One of the emails that Teresa has been having issues is EarthShare. EarthShare, the word share is a vulnerable word. So I had to actually whitelist earthshare.org for those emails to come into Therese, things like that. So there are certain words that these tools recognize as a malicious websites, and they filter them out.
Well, I hope it was earthsharenj.org, because that's me.
Yeah, well, it was so long back. I don't know the whole domain. Yeah. I had to just go in and click and say, okay, whitelist this website.
Yeah. We had changed platforms for our email, and that's when we were starting to have a little bit of problems. But
it's interesting because that's raising a question for me, because there are some emails I can get from people at a certain domain, but there's other people that I can't at the same domain,
Mm.
which is again, it's an Earthshare domain. So
Well, if it is Earthshare to Earthshare, you will have to talk to your IT person
Yeah.
who
well,
handles it.
it's again, we're Earthshare New Jersey, they're Earthshare. It's two different entities.
Oh,
They're two very different entities.
okay. Yeah, the word share tends to create a lot of problems. There are certain words that are coined, which like travel, share, um, um, economic. Those are the words that tends to filter out. They are considered as a malicious words. So the first thing it does is it pulls it out. You decide, you meaning your IT department decides whether to let those emails from those domains come in, and it gets whitelisted within the tool itself. So every time Therese says that, oh, I'm not getting, I go look for the domain and then look to see if if any part of that domain has a word that is considered, blacklist, and I go in and whitelist the domain. It learns as it goes.
I'm always curious how all these phishing things, where they start, where they stop. I mean, I'm mystified at my email myself per day of how many things I'm getting probably in the last year that I'm like, there's no way I would click on that, but why do people click on those things? It's just, I mean, they must be getting, I guess what happens is when you click on it, it gets into your computer and unfortunately they can retrieve information. Is there any way to prevent some of that too?
Phishing, avoiding phishing is totally user training. It's all user experience. So the only way to get around phishing is training, nothing else. Yes, Gilda.
I figured out the unmute thing now. I think I got it. I have a question. I'd like to learn more about the cloud. How and where can I learn more about that? Would you know?
What do you want to know about the cloud?
Well, how to get in there and how to look around and see what they got. Because I back up every day to with my hard drive, and it also backs up to the cloud. But I'd like to learn how do I get in there to see what's there?
No, I can do a one-to-one session with you later.
If not today, could we do it another day?
Yeah.
You get some rest, Mitali.
Yeah, please get some sleep. You look like you could use it. After you finish sleeping, then we'll do one-to-one.
Sure.
I love it. Everyone cares about you, Mitali.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions or anything else you want to talk about? We have a few minutes left.
this was really good. Thank you. Appreciate all the tips and points to how to keep us safer.
Yes. Yes. So actually, can we touch on the cloud? Because I know that with limited storage that people have maybe on their local hard drive, or they, they want to just have something more accessible. I mean, how safe is the cloud as far as putting stuff out there? I know it's used by tons of people with tons of information.
Cloud, it is safer than your computer, that's for sure.
Okay.
Because when you do a cloud backup, they are guaranteeing your data's safety. And once it backs up to the cloud, and your hard drive crashes,
Mhm,
knock on wood, it shouldn't.
mhm.
You can still get your data back from the cloud. And cloud is doing its job. As long as you tell it that this is what I need back to.
Right. Right.
So is that a recommendation to have it both on your hard drive or the cloud? Like sometimes I think to myself, like, I end up deleting things and then I'm thinking to myself, well, I have it on the cloud, I'll be fine. But then I always worry about something that I would, maybe didn't back up accurately or need.
Again, it all depends on how you have configured it. So that's a discussion for a one-to-one another day, because there are so many aspects to it.
Mhm.